Back here next week, and pleasure to be here hosting JKL. And our guest tonight is none other than Dr. Manu Chandaria. Manu, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
What a treat. I know you're a busy man, so to get you here,
okay, that's right.
You've probably come straight from State House, probably.
No.
Anyway, complete pleasure to have.
Yeah.
Everyone knows you in Kenya, you don't need any introduction. You're a well-known industrialist, you're a philanthropist, you're part of Kenya's DNA in many ways. I guess to start off with, many people would like to just know, how did the Chandarias end up with this huge empire? Where did it all begin?
Well, it all began about 100 years back when my father came over here to earn say approximately 4,000 rupees. Rupees were the currency until 1923.
God. A little bit before my time, I point out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So he thought that he would come over here, earn living, and then go back. And that was the whole idea. But after 6 months of working, there was 6 in the morning until 12 midnight, 3 meals at home of the owner, and then sleep in the shop with, Americani.
Yeah.
And 5-6 blankets.
And this was in Biashara Street, was it?
No, yeah. Well, it was Nagara area, somewhere Nagara area. Yeah. And so he decided that after 6 months, he decided, let me ask my salary. And yeah, so you do good job. You're quite satisfied. Your salary is 20 rupees a month, 120 rupees for 6 months. So he felt, my God, his dream crashed.
Yeah.
How come?
I was still on that salary, by the way. If anyone's listening, it's a very similar salary, so I can empathize with him.
So he said, no, this is not on, because I already spent 112 shilling already, or rupees at that time, on my medication, my clothes and whatnot. So what am I going to save? So he decided, no, thank you very much, I don't think I'll do it. So he decided, let me start my own. But at that time there was so much of understanding that if you work somewhere and if you tell him that, look, I want to live here, and if you've done well, that's okay, I'll support you. Once you go another 10 kilometers from here, or 20 kilometers from here, or 100 kilometers from here, and I'll supply you the goods. And so that's how this started.
And this is 1915, around there?
1916, yeah, 1916, yeah.
And I guess he had no idea then that he'd end up with this amazing empire.
No, but then the basic problem was that he had only 3 vernacular, means Gujarati, the language the Biashara Street speaks, and he couldn't read, write or speak English. And so every time he wanted anything to be done, he has to go to his neighbor and ask him, can you write a letter, can you fill up this form, can you come with me to the bank? He just couldn't. And so on, from that day, he decided that if I wanted my children's future any different than mine, they need to study. And that's it.
And he invested in the education.
And invested in the education. And it's pushed around it like nobody's business. But normally at Biashara Street, when you go up to, say, Form 1 or Form 11 or 12, and then you go to office, shop, start working, and then you lose interest in studying, and you get on the job.
But you didn't, because you actually ended up getting a master's in engineering.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just going to say, by the way, if you just tuned in, the hashtag is, of course, Manu Chandaria, and you can use the Twitter handle at CKFoot and also at Koinange Jeff as well. So please follow us on that. But just to pick up, when you went off and you were in Oklahoma finally when you did your masters, why did you decide to come back? Why didn't you hammer like most of the other Kenyans said they weren't coming back?
But basically, in a family, I've lived all my life in a family. So again, came back as just supposed to be coming back. We just came back, and basically decided that. But when we came back, it was not me. My elder brother was with me. He had gone to Berkeley. My cousin was in engineering college, and he done civil engineering. So all 4 of us came along at the same time.
But interesting dynamic, because one of the dynamics of a family business is how everyone gets on. Did you come back and was it a bed of roses, or was there some tussles Esau and Jacob type things?
No, the originally was that, the expectations were so high. And we always kept on feeling that, and at that time by the World War II, we had lost quite a bit of our empire in here and in India. And so we thought that maybe we had one manufacturing plant in Mombasa and a little wholesale business here in Nairobi. And we decided that this plant is 40 people and 6 members of the family on top. When you go home, there are another 30 sitting there.
Yeah.
So many times we kept on feeling, hey, come on, why not 9 to 5?
Yeah.
Get out of this. Why should you be bothering with this? But I think that the responsibility at that time occurred to us and said, no, our parents have really worked hard, lifetime, to send us, give us the education. We were almost the first graduates in our community, and sent us even to the United States. Now, if you just say, thank you very much, that's not fair.
No, and so, as a family, the brothers resolved how to do business, and you were very successful. And I don't need to tell people how it turned out. But in your years, you've dealt with several presidents, several regimes. I mean, during '72, did you think that what happened in Uganda with Amin was going to happen to the Indians here? Did you have any of those sort of concerns?
Yes, no, not concerned in Kenya. But what we have done is that when I started work, it was colonial rule in 51. 63 or 64, Kenyatta's rule.
Yeah.
Kenya became independent. And then Moi, and then Kibaki, then Uhuru.
Yeah.
So we have seen almost all the 4.
And they're all on speed dial, no doubt you can call them up.
Well,
let's ask, I won't ask you who's the best president, of course I can ask you that, but who's the one you've had the most personal relationship with?
well, I think almost all of them, I think, except the first one, because I was living in Mombasa.
Right.
So only when he came to Mombasa, I met him.
Right.
But I think that Mr. Moi, Kibaki, and our president. But now, when I see the younger president, I feel very comfortable, because he also feels that he knows me, because he was born at the same time my son was born.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. You've held counsel for many presidents, and many of the government positions you've held as advisor and so forth, the National Economic Council and so forth. How do you tell a president that you perhaps don't agree with him? I mean, if I was president, you say, Chris, give me an example of how you do it without mentioning names.
No, let's for example, we're talking about the existing, the Uhuru Kenyatta. We were talking about SME, and
SME, by the way, you need to clear up. Some of the listeners might think that's some disease.
Oh,
it's
no, that's
we'll just clarify that.
It's small and medium businesses.
Small medium enterprises, exactly.
Enterprises, but I think that it's also micro enterprises.
Yeah.
And I think that we told that, look, it took us 10 years during the Mwai Kibaki's time to bring the act, and just they will not get through, and so finally we got it through.
Yeah.
Now, when he came along and when the presidency was in the office, we told him that, look, the point is that there's no jobs available. At the end of the day, the number of people who are coming out is almost 900,000 people, and the organized sector cannot even take more than 50 to 100,000 at the maximum. Government cannot take any more.
Yeah.
So where are they going to go? So there has to be, what does it require to do a business? You require skills, you require financing, you require market, and you require space.
Yeah.
And so we mentioned them that, look, these are the 4 requirements.
These are some of the issues.
Yeah.
And then they make
the youth fund was there, women fund was there, Uwezo fund came into picture. But everything's done together. Market is now there.
Yeah. Well, it's been very successful in terms of that.
Yeah. But where is the space?
So, I mean, the classic case, I mean, I'm sure everyone at home is thinking, but you've had several presidents, and something as the elephant in the room, let's say, with corruption, have you ever had a conversation with any of the presidents about corruption? Obviously not to make money out of corruption, but how to deal with corruption.
Well, yes, in sense that, look, unless the top man is hard enough, then people will follow.
Yeah.
If you leave it to number 2, number 3, number 4, it gets diluted. And I think that, to me, my discussion would not be on corruption directly.
Yeah.
I'll always say, hey, 46% of the people are below poverty level.
Yeah.
Now what do we do with them? They have got education, but there's nothing to do with them.
I think you should have been a diplomat, not an industrialist. You're far too gracious. But we'll talk about business coming up, because I know a lot of people have tuned in to listen, particularly about your work as a businessman, industrialist, and also your philanthropy, of course. But on a personal level, I mean, how do you relax? I remember once you saying you liked orchids or something.
Yeah, my wife is an orchid grower.
Yeah.
She's a gardener. I'm a garden boy.
Ah.
But otherwise.
So there she runs. She wears the trousers in the garden.
Yeah, she wears trousers. Yeah. And I think that orchids. I used to do a lot of photography. Now I don't.
Yeah.
And I think more or less work is my problem. So many things that I do gives me a change of, while you're talking about a business and all of a sudden you start talking about street children.
Yeah.
So, it gives me a lot of pleasure.
And I know people will be asking, what car do you drive?
Oh.
No, I say that because we see some ridiculous cars out here.
Mercedes. 180.
The old one?
Yeah, the old one.
So what do you think when you, as one of the wealthiest men on the continent, drive past somebody in a very flash car? Do you just think the irony?
It doesn't make difference to me. But not only that, but I used for a long time a Mitsubishi, a small Mitsubishi, 1300.
1300. Just so you entrepreneurs who go and buy swanky cars, you heard it here. He was driving a 1300 Mitsubishi. That's where it began. Now back to family. One of the things I know, which was a lot of discussion back at the time, was in terms of succession, which is a big issue in Kenya. And I know with my lawyer hat on, I used to advise a lot of people about succession with businesses, because they seldom make the third generation. Have you begun that process to make sure that one day we don't see the Chandarias in the papers with people arguing and fighting as to whose role and who owns what? And is that a process obviously you've begun?
Well, it's been taken care of in this sense that, my father, myself, my son, and my nephew. My nephew's son.
Right.
So they are 4th generation already.
Gosh.
The question is that we've been to a size now, and we are distributed so all over the place that there is very little friction in terms of individuality. So, for example, in Kenya, will be myself and my cousin is there, and that's just it. You go to Geneva office and you'll find three or four of them. You go to London, you'll find another 3 or 4 of them. So the size of the business is large enough and very varied. So it does not really make so much of a pressure. Unfortunate, and the thing is that we got a code, and we always try to obey in a particular way that, we need to be within a room. We cannot be out on the compound.
Right.
But everywhere we must limit yourself into the issues. Whatever the issue comes, this all.
Well, talking of code, something I know that you're Jain, and that's obviously influenced a lot of your values. I'd like to see, how does that influence I know you're passionate about wildlife, and you've played a big role in that area historically. How does that, the Jain philosophy, how does that play into?
Well, Jain philosophy first believes in that you cannot kill anything. Every life has a right to survive.
Even politicians. Everybody. Okay.
Everybody.
Yeah.
So you do not really destroy anything. You don't kill, and that's why we are vegetarians. We don't kill anything so that we can consume that. That's number one. Number two, we are always the issue is about how to hurt people, and we make very sure we don't hurt physically. Jain principle says you don't hurt physically, you don't hurt people by even speech. And most unknown and unseen is you don't think about hurting somebody in your mind. So now that set that you don't follow everything, but it restricts you and tells you, hey, why? What's the problem with you? Why do you have to go and hurt him?
Right.
There's no reason for it. And everything can be resolved by sitting and talking. And even if you can't resolve it, it's better agree to disagree.
Wonderful. And we'll be talking about that towards the end of the show when we talk about Kenya going into 2017. But one of the areas which you've played a pivotal role has been the whole dynamic of the associations you've been involved with. You set up Kenya Association of Manufacturers, you're the founding chairman of KEPSA, numerous, I mean there's a long list. What has motivated you to set up these bodies, and have they delivered what you hoped they would deliver?
You see, I came down to Nairobi in about, I think it was 1970. And about 2 or 3 years later, you found that there was no environment to do business, really. Whoever wants to go and grab it, that's the business. And we wanted to create an environment. So I joined KM. Later on I became a director. I became a vice chairman. I became a chairman. And basically, it showed me two things. That how do we really create an environment by the people what is good. So we found that, look, unless the top people, I mean, managing directors of is it BAT or it's Bata or is it Chandarias or it's Shell, if they don't sit, if they don't take responsibility, it doesn't work. So I pushed every one of them to get into KM, and that's why KM became very big. And then when its time came down to create KEPSA, again the same thing. The idea is that the top quality people should be able to sit together and talk to the government.
Interesting. Now, with one of these things, the list of things you're involved in and the amount of boards and chairs and associations and government advisory bodies, I mean, I counted over 40 of them over the last 50, 20 years. Do you ever say no? And two, how do you marry which ones you should get involved with? Because everyone wants a slice of you.
First thing is I don't say no.
You don't say no?
Yeah, I'm too soft about that.
I hope you brought your checkbook today. I'm looking forward to asking you a question on No, I'm sure.
No, I can't say no. I don't want to say no.
Yeah.
Because if they expect something for me to be done, and if I can do it, I'll push myself a couple of hours more, but I'll do it. But the question is that I will only try to do something which is good, which improves the life of people, which gives some kind of you leave a legacy of something which people will remember. So to me, if somebody told me that, come on, let's play golf, and I'll say thank you very much.
Yeah.
I don't have the time. But somebody will come and say, let's go and walk, let's go and see the two buildings that collapsed during the rain. And so I went. Yeah.
So with those dynamics, and we'll come on to why you set up and what instigated setting up the Chandaria Foundation. We'll come on to that after the break. But I think one of the other dynamics which people are intrigued about is how, in a country which has got so much need, and we see poverty, see every day, how do you reconcile that? Of course you're doing a lot of good work, a lot of good philanthropy. Personally, how do you reconcile that with the fact you're obviously a very blessed man in terms of wealth, with those people who haven't been blessed with wealth? How do you reconcile the two?
Very difficult. It hurts. It really hurts. And I wish there are more Kenyans to whom it hurts. Because when it hurts you, you start finding solutions. If it doesn't hurt you, you don't bother. And I think that the more and more Kenyans, but many a times money is so much around that you just almost get blinded. You've got to get out of it. You must have humility. Ego must be in your pocket, and not turn around. I think that the question is that if more Kenyans start understanding the problems of Kenya itself, then you can hold a hand. Nobody wants to really hold your hand unless he needs your hand.
Right.
But many a times when you say, oh no, that's not me, I can't. That to me is not on. And I think that's what I feel, that it hurts me, and when it hurts me, I feel like going and doing something about it.
Well, listen, we're going to come back, Manu. There's so many things we want to talk about. We'll be talking about the business side of things more and the philanthropy after the break. We're going to take a break now. You're watching Jeff Koinange Live, but it's not Jeff, it's Chris Foot at hashtag Manu Chandaria here at KTM Home. Hope you're enjoying it. Join us after the break, and we're going to pick this amazing man's amazing history and heritage and experience, and you'll be wiser for it.